I don't want to take any of it out of here yet because I honestly didn't know she was this serious. I've had times past where she's said something. I didn't feel like she was serious. I don't know. I don't know what it all means.
I don't know what the future looks like. I don't know what tomorrow looks like. I don't know what next week looks like. I don't know.
It appears to be a game, but it might not be. I don't know.
You can leave a marriage in our church. If it's a marriage like mine and Cody had, where it's just a spiritual marriage, then they release you spiritually.
Hey everyone, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. I hope you're having a good day. It's Monday, January 24th, and I have just finished watching the last episode of Sister Wives, which might be the season finale, although they're doing some sort of like one-on-one interviews of all of the people next week, which again is so bizarre to me because this season, if that's true, only had 11 episodes, and the one before that only had 11 episodes. So I'm like, are they just making the episodes shorter? And we're still only into January of last year. This show is so behind the actual timeline that by the time we get the tea, it's so cold, it's stale, right? Oh my gosh. Okay. So last night was kind of a mix of two separate storylines, and most of you guys are here because you want to know about what happened between Cody and Christine, which was sort of the second half of the show. The very first part of the show was about Ariella and her birthday and being able to get tested so that they could all get together to celebrate her birthday.
Robin called us all up and said Ari has demanded that the whole family come and celebrate her on her birthday.
And then Robin finds out that her caregiver has the germs. So let's start at the beginning. So when this opening season started, there was a lot of fighting between the family about how they were going to manage the pandemic and what rules they were going to follow. Suddenly, about 2/3 into the season, Cody develops this list that they say they're going to follow because this is the list the nanny follows. All the different rules that the nanny follows, which then he told the wives that they had to follow. During the season, we noticed that 2 of the wives were struggling with Cody's rules, and those rules were related to the pandemic and his wives, Christine and Janelle, not wanting to follow them or following them and believing that Cody was setting impossible standards for the family. And even if they followed them, they didn't feel like he would even see them anyway. They kind of felt like he was putting a roadblock in their relationships on purpose. So it ended up exposing aspects of their marriages that they believed had been there for a long time. And this was a catalyst for Christine to finally take the step to finally leave him, which we'll get to at the end of this video. In the beginning of this episode, what happened is it's Ariella's birthday, and during her birthday party, she wants everyone to come over.
We're gonna go celebrate Ariella's birthday at Robin's house. So we all went COVID tested. It's disgusting, the
And
COVID.
it's actually a really sweet moment. But, you know, can I just say something? What I noticed when I was watching this part of the episode was that it's so different to see how Cody interacts with Ariella and Solomon in comparison to any of his other children.
Birthday. I'm glad that everybody is gathering here for her because it's attention I want her to have. Having this experience with Ariella here, my job is to protect her. And my older kids have to start realizing that my world doesn't revolve around them once they're adults.
I don't recall any other birthday or any other child where he has been so hands-on and so like on top of them as he is with Robin's kids. It kind of felt like, you know, when somebody gets divorced after having a whole family and then they go off and start a new family, you know, like the long stereotype of the guy hits middle age and then he decides that he doesn't want the family that he's in and he trades the older wives in for a younger wife and starts a new family, that kind of situation. That's what I felt like when I was watching Cody and Robin. Like he was done with the older wives because those kids were older, and so now it was like.
And then my obligation is to those children who decide they're going to keep my rules and go to school. I can help them out any way that I can.
The rest of the wives were there, but it was like he couldn't have cared less about them, about their kids. It was all about like Robin and Ariella, and he was so on top of Ariella. It was like, I've never seen this before with Kody, ever.
We have never, with all of our kids, pushed them out the door when they turned 18. Now all of a sudden when it doesn't suit him, we need to push them out the door at 18. I've done everything I can for them. I'm like, that doesn't even compute for me.
All their other parties, he would just be sitting on a chair and they'd all be fawning over Kody. You know what I mean? I just didn't get it. He kept saying about how he needs to be there for Ari, and I understand, like, she's the youngest of his kids, so maybe there's that kind of connection. I don't know. But the other part that I thought was really sad was that Solomon and Truly are not that far apart in age. I think maybe 2 years. They were both babies, like, within the same time frame. Because there was still a time when they were Wayne, Truly, and Solomon. I think they're like a year apart, a year and a half apart. So when you have two kids that are so close in age and there's such a huge discrepancy in how dad's treating them, I kept thinking, like, poor Truly. Like, look at how dad fawns over Solomon and Ariella and doesn't fawn all over you, and it has to do with because he likes their mom better.
Some of the kids are supporting me and some of the kids are not supporting me. And sometimes it feels like it's based upon what the mothers are doing.
So anyways, the party was cute. Ariella was cute. She was kind of like making everyone super happy, very social. At one point, they were doing toasts and everyone was like telling Ari what they loved about her. Christine got really flush and she was blushing, and then she kept blushing more.
You're a very sweet person.
You feel red.
Oh, I am red. It's hot. Oh, God.
He's blushing too. Easy there. Blushing.
She's blushing.
And what I love about you most is you take care of people so well.
I thought you had a sunburn or something.
No, I don't have a sunburn. I just blush for some reason, okay?
And so then Ariella wanted to go get something to help her because her chest got super red, which I thought was sort of funny. And Christine just said she didn't really want to be there because at the end of the day, it was really uncomfortable for her to watch Kody being super happy with his other wives while she's not happy and not in a good place with him. And her kids are not happy with their dad. Having to face that on a daily basis would be challenging, especially when your marriage is on the verge of collapse. So after the party, they ended up finding out only a couple days later that their caregiver, their nanny, ends up getting COVID.
Well, after that, the next day, I got a call from my child care provider, my nanny and tutor for the kids, and she said that her husband and her were testing positive for COVID.
And Robin is like in a it's the weirdest way that she films it. She's sitting on this like leather couch and she's talking about how her nanny had been exposed. Last time the nanny is at the house is on a Thursday. Everyone comes over on a Saturday and everyone tested before they saw Robin on the Saturday. And then everyone was supposedly negative, although we know that now sometimes these testings are not as reliable as they can be. So then the nanny comes down with it on Tuesday, so Robin starts getting paranoid that she has exposed everyone in the family to COVID. And then Christine ends up getting like, this is really funny, this is ironic, because
I'm just going to be honest with you, and I know it's partially evil, but I just chuckle a little bit at the irony of it. I feel mostly bad for the nanny. She's got to just feel devastated.
Cody's been yelling at us about how we're the ones that are doing everything wrong, and it would be Robin and him that are the ones that end up exposing everyone to the virus. So they have to go do the tests, which Robin and Kody bring all of their kids in the car, which again, Dane, because you again see how cohesive Kody is with Robin and the kids. It's like they are just a single family.
It's gross, isn't it?
We've got little kids we're trying to work through really fast.
We got little kids we're trying to work through.
It's never been more clear to me in this episode that this family exists on its own, is its own island, and everyone else around them is just like disposable.
I'm just going to tell you, to be honest, I'm glad it wasn't me or one of my kids that infected everybody, because then it would be like pointing fingers and, see, I told you not to travel and you did anyway. And honestly, Kody would just feel more vindicated if
they have to spit into all of these things and they're all negative. So after they get their testing, the next episode or the next chunk of this comes down to Christine and Kody's. In the previews for this week's episode, we saw that Kody was going into the garage and all the stuff was in boxes. So in this episode, what we find out is a little bit more about what actually happened. So Christine explains that While she and Cody were working on installing a door into her house in order to give her space. So basically how the house is structured is there was a bedroom that was downstairs, and then there went stairs that went up that went into a loft. And the loft was where she worked, and it also had a room off to the side and a bathroom.
Part of it's where I work in my office and stuff, and so it's separated and stuff by a wall.
I don't know the answer.
All right, well, let me come on that side. Here, you want, how about if we trade places and I hold up the door and you look at it from this angle and see what you think then?
And in order to keep distance and like privacy so that the inventory that she has for LuLaRoe would not get, people wouldn't get into it, and they would have privacy for filming and stuff, they were going to install a door. So while they were installing the door, Christine mentions that Cody's like really concerned about the cat, and then when he's done with the door, she comes in there, she's sitting in there, and he's sitting in a completely other part of the room. And she says that she asks him like what this means. Like, is it really about the cat that you're doing this to about the door? Or is this about putting a door up so there's a door in between our marriage for intimacy purposes?
Is the door just about the cat? And it's not about us having an intimate kind of side of our marriage. And he goes, I'm not really interested in that anymore.
And Cody tells her, she says that he's not interested in having an intimate relationship anymore. And she explains that Cody says that it's because of her behavior, how she treats her sister wives, and just that she doesn't listen to him.
I don't like your behavior. We'll see if you can be a good sister wife and all this. And I'm like, okay, so you don't want us to have an intimate marriage? And he goes, no. And I'm like, that's not enough for me. I can't not have an intimate marriage. And he goes, people do it all the time.
Can you imagine? This is exactly what he did to Mary. When she wanted to reconcile with him, he said, you need to have better relationships with your sister wives. You need to treat the older kids better. Now it's with Christine. You need to be a better sister wife. You need to treat people better. It's never about what Cody does and how Cody treats them and how Cody pushes them to the end, and he gaslights and he neglects and he's hurtful. It's always their fault. Always.
What, so he gets to have an intimate marriage with other wives but not with me? And I'm, gonna have nothing for the rest of my life?
So Christine's like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be in a relationship where there's no intimacy, because it didn't seem fair to her that he would be able to continue on and have relationships with other women and she would just get nothing for the rest of her lives. They both agree that for like 12 years, the relationship and marriage has been incredibly strained and like very loveless. They've been having trouble for a very long time.
And he said a while ago that he wasn't attracted to me or anything. So I just thought that maybe it would get better, but it's over. The intimate part of our marriage is over.
Arguing, fighting, and Christine revealed that it was extremely difficult after Robin entered the marriage because he was so clearly favoring her and she felt very abandoned by him when Robin entered the situation, and then her kids got neglected by him.
Oh, hell, we had serious troubles in our marriage for 12 years.
I've reached a point where almost every day is hard. Almost every day is hard. It's just hard to see a silver lining every day. I'm miserable. I'm jealous as can be. I didn't know that I would be a jealous person, and I am so jealous.
Why are you not looking at?
They say that it's been a long time coming, and so she decides that instead of going at this, she says, I don't want to be in a relationship where there's no intimacy. I don't want to be in a platonic marriage. I'm not going to do that. Like, that's not for me. So she decides then, without talking to him, that instead of actually having that kind of marriage, she says to him, you're not going to sleep in my bed anymore.
She's like, my room is a special place to me and nothing special happens there for us. You know, a lot of people have marriages, they're like this, romance-free marriage. She says, not for me. So I don't want you in my room. Go ahead and go on out. You can come visit the kids, but don't plan on staying in my room.
So after she makes the decision to not have him in bed anymore, and she doesn't want to have that kind of relationship, then she decides she's going to pack up all of his stuff. Her thought process with packing up all of his belongings was that if he were there packing things up, then every single time he would be at the house, all he would be doing was packing, and he wouldn't be able to see the kids. And it would just be really stressful for everyone. So her thought process was, I will pack it all up for him. That way when he's here, he can see Isabel and he can see Truly and he can hang out and it's not a distraction. And Cody comes to the house and almost feels blindsided because he feels like it should have been a discussion about him moving out. Because he's like, well, this is my house and now all these boxes are outside and we never had a conversation about this.
More boxes. Cody's nightstand, Cody's clothes from dresser, Cody's bathroom stuff. Guess it's time for me to talk to her about it.
She said that she didn't want to have a conversation about it. Like, this was her decision. This was her choice. Like, not all things need to become a discussion. Much like having him not sleep in her bed, which she said was not a discussion she was willing to have. That was what she wanted. And she said, you're not sleeping in my bed anymore. It was same thing with him moving out. You don't want to have an intimate relationship. I'm not going to be in a relationship with you then. So Cody is out in the back and he's like looking through the boxes and he's going on and on about how he feels blindsided and he doesn't really understand, and he's wondering if this is all some sort of game for her and whether or not it's even anything remotely, like, if she's serious.
I don't want to take any of it out of here yet because I honestly didn't know she was this serious. I've had times past where she's said something. I didn't feel like she was serious. I don't know what it all means.
Also, in the middle of all of this, we'll get back to this, but also in the middle of all of this, they did a baby shower for McKelty in Utah, where nobody else but Christine and Truly went up with her girls. None of the other family came. And then there was also Garrison and Gabriel tested positive for COVID. Robin and her kids did not. And then Janelle and Savannah were getting tested, but literally we never even found out what the results of their tests were. So after that, Cody's out in the garage and he's like talking back and forth about like what this all means and like, why would she do this? And I didn't even get a say in this.
But Cody will come over and he'll spend time with the kids and then he'll leave and go somewhere else. And he won't sleep here anymore.
I think I need to talk to her about how serious she is before I really decide how I feel, because if I decide...
He's trying to process everything, but he's just like talking about like how at one point he's ambivalent and, you know, it's the totality of a loveless marriage. He literally calls it a loveless marriage. Oh, and I forgot to tell you guys that while Christine was explaining about how he didn't want to sleep with her, their last anniversary was really sad because apparently he had been telling Christine that he wasn't attracted to her. What a punch in the freaking gut. What kind of man tells a wife, I'm not attracted to you? No wonder she was always trying to lose weight and compete. And am I the only one that actually thinks, if you look at the women side by side, I actually find, and this is just my opinion, Christine to be more attractive. I don't think it's a contest. I just find her aesthetic and her look, she's just a natural beauty. And to me, I think she's gorgeous. So I think it has to be so awful to a woman to hear you're not attractive, you don't feel worthy. And he just doesn't care because that's Cody. So anyways, she said she wasn't going to have another anniversary like she did the last year where he didn't want to be intimate with her, didn't want to touch her, fell asleep, and then kept telling her she wasn't attractive. And she said, I wasn't going to have another anniversary like that, and that was it. So he's out with all these boxes, and he's just stunned. And he's like, we were in a loveless marriage.
And the first thought I have is, this is my house. This is my stuff. We never discussed this. Second thought I have is relief. Some kind of relief from burden and the woe of a loveless marriage.
So it's clear that Cody is at a point in here where he's, one, stunned that Christine, one, actually followed through on it, because he said that she had been making these threats for years. And he also said that he felt betrayed by her. And the reason why he wasn't attracted to her anymore and their marriage wasn't working was because he said that she was telling everyone else that she was going to leave him, and that made him not trust her. So he was like, she murdered our relationship by betraying me, and talking to everyone else about me and going behind my back. So he blames her, he doesn't care, and they were in a loveless marriage. But you could tell that he was angry, like so angry that she finally made the choice to leave. Like he knew that it wasn't, I think you get to a point where he realizes it wasn't a joke anymore. So then Christine explains that you can get a divorce in their faith. You just have to go through this, the church, and they can untie you spiritually because you've had a spiritual relationship.
If it's a marriage like mine and Cody had, where it's just a spiritual marriage, then they release you spiritually. As far as I'm concerned, that's just between me and God.
She didn't mention whether or not she was going to go through that or not, because she felt like this was a relationship between her and Cody, and it was between her and God. So I don't know if that means that she's just going to leave the church, because if she doesn't go through the church to get a divorce, then technically she would be like out of sync with the church. So, but she said that her decision to divorce him, because it's not a real marriage, it's only a spiritual, is between her and God, and in her mind she was divorcing him. And then Cody was more concerned about the karmatic idea of what it would mean to be divorced and how it would affect him karma-wise, obviously in the afterlife with his celestial kingdom, but he didn't want to say that because it's TLC and they need to sanitize this extremism for you. At the end of the day, Christine's decision to leave him sounds like it was a lot of years in the making. And to be completely honest, I think for her, him just making that statement of, I don't want to be intimate with you anymore, she didn't care. I think she at that point was like, that's what I needed. Like, this was the confirmation I needed to know, because you said you weren't attracted to me. Now you don't want to have this intimacy with me. So it was almost like, even though she was heartbroken, even though she didn't know what to tell her girls, even though she was really scared at the moment about what was going to happen, she also was very hopeful about her future, because she said she felt better when she wasn't around him, and her kids noticed that she was happier when she wasn't with him and didn't have to deal with him. And so it's like this sort of push and pull of, I hate him, I'm unhappy, but I love him, it's all I know. And then this other of the unknown in the future. And so she's trying to put her best foot forward and move forward in a situation where she can find happiness. And one thing she says in that episode is, I want to leave Flagstaff. So we already know that she has moved to Utah, and she took Truly with her. And next week is when they sit down and talk about the relationship. And it sounds like there are some discrepancies about, Cody saying, I didn't say it was over for good, or that we couldn't work on it, or something like that. And then, Robin crying and acting like she didn't try hard enough, and Janelle saying that she didn't give it her all, and Mary saying, I thought about leaving him too. Here's the deal. I don't know. They're all going to do their speak, and we only see the clips, but Cody's going to be defiant next week, I'm sure. He's probably going to take next to no responsibility. Christine's going to share what happened with her. And we still are at a place today where I still believe wholeheartedly that Janelle might be reevaluating her relationship, because she and Christine are very close. And when Christine left the marriage, she left the family, okay? And so that sister wife that she had with Janelle is gone, because they don't share the same husband anymore. So Janelle is closer to Christine by the point that Christine leaves than she is to her own husband. So Janelle could see Christine taking off and flying off and having her wings, and actually see that as a positive for herself, and be like, if Christine can do it, so can I. And all these different tabloids are saying that it's already, she's evaluating her other options. And we'll get into what the tabloids are saying and what the sources are saying after this video is over. But for now, I just want to say I'm really proud of Christine for leaving. It's really encouraging to see someone hold a boundary and say, I wasn't going to do that, and actually follow through. It's encouraging to see that she is going to take those steps and move forward. And it doesn't surprise me that Cody takes no responsibility. And it's very clear to me that Cody has a one-wife relationship and everyone else is expendable. So if he really just wants to be with one wife, then he should just let the rest of them go. So next week will be a doozy, but what did you think about this week? Tell me in the comments below. Bye, guys.